Light is a fundamental part of our life. We see it every day in different places, whether it's a sunlight, moonlight, or an electric lamp. We are used to them and take them for granted. But usually we don't think that if there were no light, then we wouldn't see anything at all. It not only helps to see objects, but also helps to understand the type of surface, how glossy or rough it is, its properties, and etc. Light can also guide. We are attracted to bright spots of light. We follow the lines of shadows. Also, light can influence our emotions. For example, foggy night is mystic and scary, while sunset is a romantic time. On a cloudy cold day, we usually feel a bit sad. Light has three main characteristics: color, brightness, and direction. The beam of light has an additional characteristics that depend on the properties of the light source, for example size, form, and specularity. Lighting artists in game dev create lighting scenarios for game levels and cutscenes. At the same time, this lighting not only simulates real-life light sources, but also takes into account the artistic side, makes the game level as beautiful as possible, and helps in guiding the player. Also, lighting artists should know lighting theory and color theory, understand how light travels through space and what effects it can cause, how to use light to make image visually appealing, set desired mood, show depth of the scene, and make environment look good. And now let's take a closer look at the light sources. There are a lot of different light sources that form lighting conditions in the world. Knowing light type will help you to build an appealing and realistic lighting. And let's start with direct sunlight. You can see it during a clear sunny day, and taking into account that sun is far away from Earth, its rays fall parallel to each other. That means that all shadows are parallel too. It illuminates the surface fairly evenly, since the intensity difference is not noticeable at short distances. I will be using a lot of movie examples, since very often lighting for games and movies has the same goals. Lighting has also evolved along with the development of cinema. In this shot from the Titanic, there is a pre-sunset. Lighting have gold tint, and the positive romantic mood of the frame is transmitted. Here, the sun is used to emphasize the contours of the characters' face. Both characters are well distinguishable from each other. In the frame of the labyrinth, we see how the light emphasizes the volume well, and we can easily read all the shapes. On a clear day, the luminous blue dome of the sky surrounds the sun, giving a diffuse, soft light coming from multiple directions at once. You can see it well here in the desert shot. Some of the mountains are in shadow and have a cold blue tint due to the light reflected from the blue sky. At high altitudes, or if the air is especially clear, the sky is even more blue-violet than usual, and the shadows become grayer. With more haze or smoke, shadows appear relatively closer to the tonal value of the sunlight. Sunlight is represented by directional lighting engine. It simulates light that is being emitted from a source that is infinitely far away. This means that all shadow cast by this light will be parallel, making this the ideal choice for simulating sunlight. Directional light intensity is usually measured in lux. Lux value describes illuminant total luminous flux incident on a surface per unit area. It is a measure of how much the incident light illuminates the surface. Overcast light is common for overcast weather, when clouds cover the entire sky. Therefore, there is no direct sunlight. The layer of clouds diffuses the sunlight, eliminating the extreme contrast of light and shadow. Ambient lighting shows true colors of the objects. Without sharp shadows complicating the scene, a picture is simpler and the shapes are bigger, tend to create a more wistful or sad mood. Surprisingly, colors appear brighter and purer than they do in direct sunlight. It's easier to show the patterns of costumes and signs. The sky appears light gray or white, often the lightest note in the composition. Overcast lighting engine can be replicated with intense skylight, in combination with different types of ambient occlusion. The skylight captures the distant part of your level and applies that to the scene as a light. That means the skylight's appearance and its lighting and reflections will match, even if your sky is coming from atmosphere, or layered clouds on top of a skybox, or distant mountains. The next source of light is the moon and the night state. Before outdoor electric light was invented, there were two colors of light at night: moonlight and orange flame-based light. As electric lighting developed, new colors entered the nightscape. The modern nightscape includes incandescent, fluorescent, neon, and etc. In films and cinema, usually additional light sources are used. In game dev, even though the moonlight is quite weak, we still use directional light to simulate it. This gives us an additional shadows, directionality, reflections, and depth. Our resources are quite limited, and we need to push every light as far as possible. And even considering that the directional light is very weak, it still creates a lot of atmosphere and shadows. Bounce lighting is when the light from a strong light source is literally bounced off a bounce board, reflector, or other light-colored surface. A light that is bounced causes a big spread of light than its original source. It can also diffuse the light onto a subject. While bounce lighting is a very effective means to harness and soften natural light, it doesn't mean you can't use it with artificial light either. It is generally soft light because it reflects off the surface, and not very intense. Unless you're using lumen or bake everything, you'll need to fake and simulate bounce lighting to make your scene look believable. It also can help to bring more light into the dark shadows. Luminescence is quite rare. When hot or flaming objects give off light, it's called incandescence. But some things give off a glow at cool temperatures through a process called luminescence. This light can come from both living and non-living things. And let's talk about bioluminescence. Organisms that can produce light live mostly in the ocean. They include fish, squid, jellyfish, and bacteria. In the deep sea, beyond the reach of light, the light patches function to lure prey, confuse predators, or locate a mate. Some light producers are activated by mechanical agitation, creating the milky light in the ocean. Land animals that emit light include fireflies and centipedes. Some kinds of mushrooms that grow on rotting wood emit a dim light called foxfire. Fluorescence is light that is produced by an object that converts invisible electromagnetic energy, such as ultraviolet radiation, into visible wavelength. Some minerals, such as amber and calcite, will give off colorful visible light when they lit by ultraviolet light. Blue-green colors are mostly common in the ocean, because those wavelengths travel farther through water. Luminescence is usually implemented with emissive in engine. Things like lamps, candles, or even the television set, we call those things practical or motivated lights. The most common indoor lights are incandescent and fluorescent. You have to keep in mind their quality, relative brightness, hardness or softness, and color cast. The brightness of bulbs is measured in lumens, but what matters to artists is relative brightness within a scene, especially when you have more than one source. The relative brightness depends on such things as the wattage, the type of lamp, how close the subject is to the light, and how bright the other lights are. Hardness or softness refers to how large the patch of light seems to be, from the point of view of the subject. A hard light comes from sharp small point. The sun or a spotlight is a relatively hard source of light. Hard light is more directional and more dramatic. It casts crisper shadows, and it brings out more surface texture and highlights. A soft light emanates from a wider area, such as the large light panel. In general, softer light is more flattering and reassuring. Tonal transitions from light to shade are more gradual in soft light compared to hard light. Lighting designers turn a hard source into a soft source using a large translucent diffuser panel. It's also the reason people put lampshades over incandescent bulbs. Color cast is the dominant wavelength of a light source, often measured in degrees Kelvin, a standard measure based on the main color of light that an object emits when it's heated to extreme temperatures. The color cast is sometimes hard to judge by just looking at light. The graphs of spectral power distribution show which wavelengths of the visible spectrum have the strongest output. Regular incandescent lights are strongest in the orange and red wavelengths, and they tend to be weak in blue. Standard warm white and cool white fluorescence emphasizes yellow and green. Even window light can be practical. Interior scenes in daylight are often lit by the soft light that enters the room through window or open doors. This light has traditionally been popular with artists because of its constancy and its simplifying effect. If the sun is not shining directly through the window, the daylight that enters the room from outside is usually bluish. The cool color contrasts with the relatively orange color of artificial lights shining in the room. To simulate window light in the engine, usually you need directional light if the sunlight falls through the window. Skylight portal to simulate skylight if you are baking lighting. In many cases, a simple directional light is not enough, and you will need to add an additional lights to simulate shadows and light bounces. Spotlight with shadows can be used to cast an additional light from the window. Spotlight or point light can be used to simulate bounce from floor, walls, and ground. Unreal Engine offers multiple light entities to simulate practical light influence on a scene. First is a point light. Point light emits light equally in all directions from just a single point in space. Pretty much like in real life, inside the Unreal, brightness of any point source diminishes rapidly with the distance. This weakening of light is called fall-off. It diminishes according to the inverse square law, which states that the effect of light shining on a surface weakens at a rate comparable to the square of the distance between source and surface. S represents the light source, while R represents the measured points. The lines represent the flux emanating from the sources and fluxes. The total number of flux lines depends on the strength of the source and is constant with increasing distance, where a greater density of flux lines means a stronger field. The density of flux lines is inversely proportional to the square of the distance from the source, because the surface area of a sphere increases with the square of the radius. Sometimes for artistic reasons you can break this law, but be careful with it, for example if you need a cave with natural light. A spotlight emits light from a single point in cone shape. Users are given two cones to shape the light, the inner cone angle and outer cone angle. Within the inner cone angle, the light achieves full brightness. As you go from the extent of the inner radius to the extent of the outer cone angle, a fall-off takes place, creating a penumbra. The radius of light defines the length of the cones. Spotlights are generally used for artificial light sources, such as light fixtures, flashlights, car headlights, and etc. The rect light emits light into the scene from a rectangular plane with a defined width and height. You can use them to simulate any kind of light sources that have rectangular areas, such as televisions or monitor screens or head lighting fixtures. Each rectangular light has two key settings, source width and source height, which determine the size of its rectangle along its local y and z axis. Rectangular light has a spherical attenuation radius, like a point light or a spotlight. However, specular highlights for the rect light show the width and height of the light's rectangular area. Illuminating Engineering Society profiles are a lighting industry standard method of diagramming the brightness and fall-off of light, as it exists in a particular real-world light fixture. Unreal Engine can use IES profiles to get a realistic lighting results based on the profiles directly from light manufacturers. IES profiles render very fast and do not have a significant effect on performance, making them a more ideal option for shaping your light than using a light function. Profiles of various fixtures can be downloaded from light manufacturer websites. We must remember that all quantities are relative. When we see only colors, we do not understand whether they are in shadow or not, and so on. You do know that the white area in the eye is in fact white, but using pure white paint is always a mistake. If you step away from your prejudices for a moment and look at the eye, you will see that the white area in there is in fact a much darker gray than you have suspected. Do not let names and what you know about colors disturb your perception. In here square A and square B has equal brightness, but our brain tricks us into believing that A is darker than B. So we should always keep in mind how different colors look in different lighting conditions. Our instruments are not only light sources, but also shadows. Shadows as well helps to tell a story, attract attention, or give an additional detailization to simple environment. In this shot from Nosferatu, we see nothing but a shadow. But the shadow lets us know that there is a monster coming. Rooms from the Blade Runner are very simple, it's just a concrete walls, but shadows add stunning detail to such a simple interior.